Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Curious About Our Planet Festival, brought to you by Glasgow Science Centre. And if you're here, you must be here for the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland's tour of Edinburgh Zoo, where we're going to meet some magnificent creatures. We're actually going to meet the greater one-horned rhinoceroses over there very, very shortly, in a few moments, and we're going to find out where they live in the zoo, where they live in the wild, and we're also going to find out what things are being done to protect these magnificent creatures in the wild and in captivity as well. And during the course of this Q&A, you can submit your questions after the tour into the chat box just over there. So if you've got any questions about the rhinoceros, where they live, or anything like that that's maybe not brought up during the tour, save your questions for after the tour and fire them in the comments, and we will do our very, very best to make sure that we get to all those questions for you. Now, we're about to go live over to Edinburgh Zoo with Lizzie and Amy. We're going to hand over right now. Hello, everybody. Hello. How are you doing over there?
Hi, folks. My name's Amy. We've also got Lizzie, who's behind the camera today.
Hello.
And we're coming to you live from Edinburgh Zoo. Today we're in a little bit of a smelly house for our animals. We're inside the Rhino house today. We've got two of these rhinos here at Edinburgh. We can see Sanjay and Kabid. So out of these two, Kabid is the oldest. He's 5 years old. He arrived here at the zoo in 2018. And then a year later, Sanjay arrived. He came from a zoo in Germany. And he's just coming up to 4 years old. So there is a bit of a size difference between Kabid and Sanjay. Because Kabid is older, he's a little bit bigger. But it's very difficult when they're in this position to be able to tell them apart. But you should be able to see a little bit of a size difference, I think, there.
I think so, yeah.
Between our two boys. Now, we do have two male rhinos at Edinburgh, and that surprises a lot of people because with two male rhinos, we can't have any baby rhinos. But that's because we are part of the breeding program, but our role is to hold these bachelor groups. So we've got two males together while they're young, so they don't get lonely. They've got another individual there that can help to keep their brains active, their bodies active. And we keep them until they're mature, when they're about 8 years old. And that's when they'll head off to other zoos to meet up with females and hopefully have some baby rhinos. So that's our role in the breeding program for this amazing animal. This type of rhino is the Indian rhino or greater one-horned rhino. So you might be able to see, if you look, they've only got one horn. So it's a very apt name for them. Oh, just having a nosy at us, wondering what we're doing.
Showing off his horn.
So if you have a look at that horn, a lot of people think that we've cut it, but we've not done anything to it. Remember that these rhinos are only 5 and 4 years old, so the horn has only been growing for that long. It'll keep growing throughout their life. So it can grow in some Indian rhinos to about 60 to 70 centimetres long, so it can be pretty big. But at the moment, because they're young, they've only got short horns. Those horns are unfortunately one of the reasons that these animals are vulnerable to extinction. People hunt them for their horns. They use it in things like traditional medicines, and also people carve it and make it into things like dagger handles and all sorts of weird objects. But actually it's made from the same stuff that makes our hair and fingernails. So it's a bit like being hunted for your toenails, which I certainly wouldn't enjoy, but it's not something that has been shown to have any medical gain for people who take the rhino horn. It's just a traditional belief. But these rhinos are a little bit different from the rhinos that you might be more used to seeing, like the black rhino and the white rhinos of Africa. Because these animals don't live on the big open grass plains. These guys live on the surrounding areas of rainforests, so they live in quite swampy areas. And their habitat, unfortunately, is being destroyed. So the trees are being cut down, and we know that that's having an impact on global warming, climate change that's happening at the moment, because the trees aren't there to soak up the carbon dioxide. But it also means that as the world heats up, these swampy areas are becoming more and more dry. The weather patterns are changing in India, and these animals have fewer and fewer places where they can survive. Like this sort of rhino, these Indian rhinos, can spend up to 60% of their day in water. They absolutely love the water. It helps to keep them cool, and the mud helps to protect them from biting insects. But that mud, those swamps, are disappearing. So climate change doesn't just impact animals that live in the snow and on the ice. It's impacting all of these species across the world. So it's really important that we can have rhinos in captivity to keep their numbers up, but also to show people how amazing they are. These huge animals that have been around for hundreds of thousands of years, they look like armor plated, but actually it's just really thick skin. They're beautiful. And actually, if we think about their scientific name, these guys are the only surviving unicorns left, because their scientific name is Rhinoceros Unicornus.
That's amazing.
And that means like one horn, Unicornus. So these guys are official unicorns. So we can protect unicorns, we can help the unicorns to survive, but it does take a lot of work globally to help to protect these animals. But looking at them, I mentioned their armor plating, because it just looks like they're wearing this like suit of armor. Their skin is incredibly thick. You might be able to see the wrinkles around the neck. That is to help protect them from, again, biting insects, those pesky mosquitoes and things like that, but also from sunburn and from damage when the males fight. So at this age, they're the best of friends. Look at them all cuddled up together there under the heat lamp. But when they hit puberty, when they become adults, that is when the fighting starts. And they use their horns in those fights. So the thick skin helps to keep them safe. So they can get scratches, and sometimes it can look really bad to us, but really it's absolutely nothing to them because their skin is so thick. I don't know if you can see their feet very well, unfortunately, from there, but for such a big animal, these rhinos have very delicate feet. And that's because, they're made for walking around on mud. They don't need really solid, hard feet if they're walking on mud and through the water. So that's something that we have to keep a check on here at the zoo. So these animals, our rhinos, go through training. So just like you can train a dog, you can train a rhino. And using the same sorts of things. So generally food works. And they have things like a target that they can touch with their nose, and then they get a treat for doing that. They get praise as well. But they're trained to lift their feet. So the vets and the keepers can check the pads of their feet to make sure they're not damaged. But also they will open their mouths so you can have a good look in there, check that its teeth are all right. And hopefully soon, if they keep up their training, then they'll be able to be trained to lie down, much like they're doing at the moment. And that means that the keepers can give them a really good visual check, make sure that there's nothing wrong with them, that there's no injuries that they might have picked up from rolling around. So very intelligent animals. You might notice, if you look at the heads of them, that Kabid and Sanjay have these amazingly big ears. And they turn them around so they can listen for where sounds are coming from. So it helps them avoid anything that might give them a fright. So we can see just moving, might be able to see his ears moving around a bit. There we go, thank you. You might also be able to notice that his eyes are incredibly small. So their eyesight, pretty rubbish. So that's why they need the hearing. They do have a really good sense of smell though as well. So hearing and smell is where rhinos really excel. Eyesight, no. But that's why some people may have been charged at by rhinos, because if they're scared, if they're spooked by something, then a rhino will charge first. It may not be able to see what it is, it just knows that it's danger, so it charges. And that's why you'd have to be very careful here at the zoo. So the keepers, when they're doing training, don't go directly in with the animals. In the camera that Lizzie's showing you, you can see a really big green fence. So the keepers stand on this side of the fence.
So we're on this side. Let's see if I can get... There we go. So there's two fences here.
So we're on the visitor side. The keepers go in here and the rhinos stay in there. Because a rhino is incredibly strong. So if a keeper were to go in there and a rhino was to get scared by a sudden noise, then they could accidentally hurt the keeper. And that is the last thing we want to happen. They may look super chilled out, but you know, sometimes they can be a bit delicate. Just like all of us, if there's a sudden noise. They're absolutely beautiful though. You have a look at their shape, they're actually related to horses. And if you look closely, I think you can see that in the shape of the head, the ears, the shape of the body. It's just that rhinos bulked up to stay safe. They can move pretty quickly when they want to. So they can reach speeds of about 40 kilometers an hour. So it takes them a little bit of time to get up to that speed, of course, when you're moving that much weight. Each of our boys weighs about 1.5 tons. So quite a lot. But that's rhinos for you. When they're fully grown, these males can weigh anywhere up to 3 tons. So they can be enormous. I'm not sure you'll have been able to hear that, but rhinos are rather windy animals, we'll say. So there's quite a lot of breaking wind that happens. That's one of the reasons it's a little smelly.
A little smelly in here, yeah.
But that's because they're vegetarians. So they're eating nothing but plants. And as their body breaks down those plants, it produces quite a lot of wind. But that's fine, you know, they're rhinos. They can eat, each one can eat around 40 kilograms of food a day. And they pretty much poo out 40 kilograms a day each as well. So there's a heck of a lot that the keepers have to do with our rhinos to help keep them clean, but also keep them active. I know they don't look very active at the moment.
But these two are quite playful when they're awake, aren't they?
They are, yeah. They love chasing each other around. There's sort of toys and things that are out in the enclosure. There's sort of things hanging down, like a big plastic ball hanging down that they charge at. There's big tractor tyres that they can move around. So there's lots of things in there which we call enrichment to help keep them fit and healthy. Now, I thought maybe he was going to stand up there, but he's not.
I know the feeling.
But it's difficult to see, but you might have just been able to see their amazing lip. So their lips are pointy and they're what we call prehensile. So that means they can grip with them. So just like we do with our hands, they can grip leaves and grasses and pull them with their lip. Oh, here we go. Oh, he's having a bit of a stretch. Now he's stood up. Wondering what on earth we're doing in here, I think. Like we've disturbed his Saturday nap.
They haven't seen visitors for a little while, have they?
No, they
the only
haven't.
people they've seen are keepers.
You can come over. Or are you happy over there just having a drink? I think he's looking a little bit suspicious at the moment at us. But he seems pretty relaxed, pretty chilled. They have been in and out quite a lot today already, so it was difficult to try and keep track of them. But usually when one's up, the other isn't far behind, but doesn't look too interested at the moment, having a bit of a yawn.
So would you maybe tell us a bit about what their enclosure is like here in the zoo?
So yeah, their enclosure, it's quite large, as you would expect for such big animals. In this indoor section, so where they are at the moment, you might be able to see the red light that's shining down. So that's the heat lamp.
And it is very warm in here.
It is. So that helps our rhinos, stay warm because they're not really evolved to deal with really cold temperatures, which it has been recently. It's sort of warming up now though, so it's not too bad. But they've got this really soft area where they are at the moment. So he's just showing off his mouth. I don't know if you can see his lip, but so that's a nice soft area where they can lie down, as you can see, enjoying it quite a lot. They've got this hard area at the front, so this is where the keepers can do the training with them. Then over to the side is one of their pools. So they've kind of got these like hot tubs, if you like, for our rhinos. So we've got an indoor hot tub here, and then outside there is an outdoor pool. Oh, there we go, he's had enough, he's just going to lie back down. And they also have a beautiful mud wallow, so just a really big area of mud that they love to roll around in. They have a really soft ground outside, just so it doesn't hurt their feet. So like I said, they live in these swampy areas, so it's quite swampy outside. But there is plenty of stuff out there, as I mentioned, these big tyres, the balls, blocks, all sorts of things that these animals can play with, and it helps them to develop their really strong necks that the boys have. But of course, we are a conservation charity, so we have to think about how we are impacting the world ourselves. I mentioned climate change earlier is impacting our wild rhinos. So we have to make sure that we're not making that problem worse. And with our rhinos, what we have is technology within the enclosure that helps us to reduce the amount of energy that we use. So we have an air heat pump, which is something that absorbs heat from the air, and that is what we use to heat the pool or heat the hot tub for our rhinos. We also use the sort of substrate, so that soft stuff that's on the ground, and that helps to insulate where they are as well. So even though it's quite an old building, this is actually, if you go back far enough, the old giraffe house here at the zoo. We've made changes to make it more sustainable in the energy and things that we use. And you know, it's sustainably sourced wood chip and things like that that's on the ground for our animals to walk on. So we're trying to make the impact of having rhinos here in Scotland as small as possible when it comes to global warming and climate change. But there are always more things that we can do. And of course, there's things that all of us can do. Just tiny changes, you know, have a walk instead of jumping in the car, or you can get on your bikes. We can recycle, so that uses less energy. Also, recycling paper means that the trees aren't being cut down, so they can still absorb the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. There are so many just really small changes that we can make. You can even turn the heating down. I mean, my friends laugh at me because my heating is very low. I don't really feel the cold. But I know that recently it has been rather chilly for people. But even turning the thermostat down a little bit by 1 degree, not only can it save you money, but it can save the planet too. So just loads and loads of little things. And if we all do one thing, think about that. There are 7 billion people in the world. So that's 7 billion people doing just one thing. That can have a huge impact around the world. So yes, these animals are vulnerable in the wild. Yes, their numbers are going down or have been going down in places. But there is work happening. There is hope out there. And we are all part of that hope. So I don't want you to go away today thinking, oh, everything's so sad and horrible, because it's not. There is hope out there. The numbers of these animals have stabilised. There are more protected areas now for these rhinos out in the wild. And more people, like you, like us, are making these differences that can help save them.
Perfect, thanks. Thanks, Amy. So we can take some questions now if you're ready.
Okay,
Let's find out what you really know about rhinos.
Wow, I was absolutely amazed seeing those beautiful, beautiful animals. And I think one thing that's truly amazing is that when you think about it, one of Scotland's national animals is the unicorn. So having these Rhinoceros Unicornus here just seems very, very apt that they're here in Edinburgh Zoo, getting protected and getting looked after, and you know, really helping, as you said, that hope that we want to keep the species going and keep the planet going with these as well. I think it's just such a lovely, lovely thing that's going on there. And I guess one real question is, I imagine there's a lot of people out there watching that have probably been just really, really inspired by your chat as well. And there's probably a lot of children out there that want to be zookeepers and want to really get involved in what's going on. And I guess the first quick question is there any programs or things going on at the zoo that kids could be a part of that could really start them on that zookeeper journey?
we have lots of programs for kids in the zoo, don't we, Amy?
Yes.
Amy is definitely our expert in that area as well.
So yeah, there's loads of things. There's for young ones or maybe people starting out on their journey and trying to find out more about them. There's loads and loads of learning things that are free, and they're on our website, learning.rzss.org.uk. I hope I got that right because Lizzie will tell me off.
That's right.
And that's free for people to use. So you can go on there, you can find out loads more about the animals and the different things. We also offer education programs here as well. We're looking at offering online experiences with some of the animals too. So watch the Edinburgh Zoo website for anything like that. But what I would say is if you really, really want to be a keeper or a vet or someone that works directly with animals, get as much experience as you can. So knowledge is great, and the more you know, the better. But also actually being with those animals, handling the animals, understanding the animals. So you know if you've got a pet, that's great. If not, then you might be able to volunteer somewhere in your local area at, say, a veterinary surgery, a farm. There are lots of different places that will take volunteers. And it just means that you can get that experience. And the more experience you have, the more chance you have of being able to get onto something like the trainee keeper course here at Edinburgh Zoo, or at any zoo, wherever you're watching. Most of them do a sort of trainee keeper program. But yeah, there's lots of different things. I went to university, so I studied zoology, and there's loads of brilliant zoology courses. A lot of my colleagues went over to Glasgow and studied their zoology over there. But also, we don't just have people that work with the animals. You might be really into computers and want to work at the zoo. Well, we've got an IT team. Lizzie here is our learning technologist. So with things like all the online stuff, Lizzie is our genius who has helped us to get all of that up and running. We've also got accountants, we've got gardeners, we've got people that work in the shop, in the cafe. So many different people. So whatever you're interested in, even if you don't want to pick up the poo from these guys, you can still work in a place like this, and whatever your interest is.
Wow, so there's plenty to be done around the zoo as well, not just handling the animals as well. There's just such a huge community that you can be a part of with the zoo, which is really amazing. And I guess, since we just talked about poo there, I guess, our rhinos are on a very, very big plant-based diet. And I guess I just want to know what are the rhinos' favorite sort of fruits and vegetables? What do the rhinos really love to eat?
What do the rhinos love to eat?
Well, the rhinos will eat pretty much any plant that you put in front of them. But they're actually, again, helping us to be sustainable here at the zoo, because the rhinos will eat the bamboo that the pandas don't want. So we have to get a huge amount of bamboo in for the pandas, and they can be very, very picky.
They're very fussy.
Yeah. So not all of it goes to them, but we don't waste it. It comes down to our rhinos, and they will munch through it in no time. But yeah, bamboo, leaves, grasses, any sort of browse, so any branches and things that fall down around the zoo, we can feed the leaves to these guys. But when we're doing training, it's things like carrots.
Cabbage.
Cabbage, yeah, they do love cabbage. So there's lots of different things, but as long as it's a vegetable, yeah, they'll eat it.
Wow. They're not really fussy, they just want to eat vegetables. I think we've got a question coming in from a viewer as well, from Splish Splash. They're asking, how long does a rhinoceros live for?
Splish Splash would like to know how long rhinos live for.
Well, very good question. So rhinos can can live for up to about 40 years. It doesn't sound that long, but 40 years is pretty good. Our boys, as I said, are 5 and 4, so they've got a long, long way ahead of them. It's about the same in the wild, but of course, fewer in the wild will survive that long because predators, diseases, food shortages, droughts, all of these sorts of things that these captive rhinos don't have to think about. Because we have people like the vets, obviously, and the keepers that can look after them. We have about 40 years maximum.
40 years maximum. Oh wow! So we've still got a long time to go, as you said. We've got a couple more questions filtering in as well from the viewers too. Donna Mills would like to ask, how many greater one-horned rhinos are left in the wild?
Oh, do you know how many greater one-horned rhinos are left in the wild?
Wow, there's always questions like this. At the moment, I'm afraid I couldn't tell you exactly how many there are. There have been down to about 3,500. So quite small numbers, but as I say, the numbers are starting to level off at that, and in some areas they are going up. So it's difficult to say, but if you go to the IUCN Red List website, then you can find out exact numbers of all sorts of different endangered or vulnerable species across the world. So it's IUCNRedlist.org, and that will give you exact numbers.
Okay, RUCNRedlist.org for the exact numbers. I think we're getting another question coming in as well from Samuel Duke. How did rhinos evolve? This is from Samuel, who's age 6. So what did they start off as and then became rhinos?
This one's a hard one. How did rhinos evolve? What did they start off as?
Ooh, how did they evolve? Well, I mentioned before that they're quite closely related to horses, and it's thought that their ancestor would have been quite horse-like. And then over millions of years, they adapted to a different way of living. So the horse that we're used to seeing evolved to be fast, very agile, whereas the rhinos evolved in a different way. So they got bulky, they got big, they got their horns for protection, and that's another way that they've been able to survive. But over millions of years, if you go back into the Ice Age, there were actually woolly rhinos. So people imagine woolly mammoths, those really big sort of furry elephant-like animals that you see. Well, there were woolly rhinos as well. So there've been a lot of branches of the rhino family tree that survived really well. And I think if you looked at a woolly rhino in a picture and maybe a Shetland pony, because they're really like shaggy haired, you could probably see a lot of similarities. So that bulk also helped them survive in the cold weather. Just like a polar bear is really chunky, a woolly rhino survived really well in that. But then, of course, the world warmed up. The woolly rhino, not very good at surviving in hot weather, so they died out. It's their other family members, other branches of the family tree, if you like, that managed to survive because they didn't have the fur. They do still have a little bit of hair on them, but it's they're certainly not covered in it. So there have been lots of different pressures acting on these animals over millions of years, and it's tiny changes, tiny adaptations that these animals have that have meant that in some way they're better at surviving. So maybe totally by accident there was an animal that developed a horn. Thank you. And that one was better able to fight off other males. So that one had more chance of being able to have babies. And then those babies would share his characteristics, so the horns. And then they would be better at surviving. So then it was passed on because it's something that helped. So they have evolved over a very, very long period of time. I mean, all of life on Earth has been evolving for about 4 billion years. So, I mean, you know, it's not a short journey.
Oh,
But yeah, it's just something that worked for their ancestors, being bulky, having the horn on their face, not having any hair, but having that really thick skin. All of these things have helped them to survive, so that is what they still have now. That's what has survived through. I hope that answered the question.
That was a good question, Samuel.
That was a really good question. That was a really good answer as well. But thanks, Samuel, as well, because for asking that, I now know the existence of a woolly rhino as well, which I'm going to check out because rhinos are one of my favourite animals, and seeing a woolly one would be amazing. We've got a couple more questions coming in as well. So we've got Splish Splash again asking, how many babies do rhinos have and how long are they pregnant for?
How many babies do rhinos have and how long are they pregnant for?
A very good question. So the females are usually pregnant for about 16 months. So it's quite a long pregnancy.
Long time to make a rhino.
But a baby rhino can stand up on its own 4 feet within 2 hours of being born. So they're much more developed than we are, say, when we're born. Because, of course, our parents or carers have these. They can pick the baby and off they go, carry it around. An adult rhino doesn't have that. So the baby rhino has to be on its feet, has to be more developed. How many babies can they have? Well, it's usually just one at a time. Because it's such a long pregnancy and it's the baby has to be big and developed to survive, there's only really space for one baby inside the womb of mum. Over a lifetime, rhinos can have the females will usually start breeding at about the age of 8 or 9, and then they could survive until they're about 40. So you've got about 30 years of breeding, say you have a baby every 2 years. So one mum could have about 15 children, 15 baby rhinos throughout their life. But that would mean, you know, every 2 years have a baby. So it's unlikely that they would have that many. But some of the zoo rhinos that we had, so one of our white rhinos that we used to have here a long time ago, Floozy, she was the mum to about 12 rhino calves over her lifetime. So she did incredibly well.
Wow, putting in a lot of work keeping the numbers up as well. Well, you know, that's a long pregnancy, and they do say that good things come to those who wait. So, you know, those beautiful creatures having to wait 16 months for those, I totally get it. We've got a few more questions coming in as well. And we've got one from Emily Yates, who just says, great informative session. Thanks you for it. And she's asking, what is your favourite thing about working at the zoo?
Oh, I think we can both answer these ones. What's our favourite thing about working in the zoo? I think that mine is just working in a zoo. It's literally seeing the animals every day. When you walk in, we have gibbons, and they sing as a family every morning, just about 9 o'clock when we're walking into the office. And so there's nothing like walking in your daily commute and you're being sung into the room by a bunch of gibbons, and it's just magical. What's your favourite thing, Amy?
Wow. Yeah, like you say, I mean, working here is amazing. We get to see these animals on a daily basis. But also, you know, knowing that we're working for a charity that's helping these animals out in the wild as well, I think that's amazing to be able to, for us to know that every day that we're, hopefully anyway, making a difference. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. I would say one of the downsides, though, is having an office that's very close to the penguins, because in the summer, they stink.
Never get anything done either.
Don't tell my boss.
Yeah, my office is the other side of that wall over there, and when the rhinos are in the pool, it's all you can smell all day. So.
Guess that's the downside of working with these amazing animals. A little bit of the smell, but I imagine it's totally worth it as well.
It's worth
Yeah, I bet it is. We've got a few more questions coming in. Thanks, Emily, for that one. Morven Pearson, how much time do rhinos spend sleeping?
Ooh, how much time do rhinos spend sleeping?
Wow. I mean, they do most of their actual sleeping overnight, so just like we do. They've got a different house where they sleep. It's up at the top, and it's much more cozy, I would say.
Much more of a bedroom.
Yeah, than down here. So they tend to sleep, overnight. So they get about 10 hours over the night time. But during the day, I mean, they may look like they're asleep at the moment.
They're not.
But they're not. I can see his eyes are open. I know. They're just sort of relaxing. So they will spend a huge amount of their time relaxing. I'm sure most of you would as well if you got given the chance. But yeah, it's conserving energy. So it's difficult to say exactly sort of how much sleep they would get. With a koala, we know that they can sleep up to 20 hours a day. For pandas, they eat for 16 hours a day. So there's some animals that we can be really precise with, but rhinos not so much. But they do rest a lot. But when they're active, they're very active.
Yeah, you mentioned them doing a lot of playing as well, so I get that. We've got a few more questions coming in. We've got one from Syllable 666. Do rhinos stomp? This is from Lyra, age 3.
Lyra would like to know if rhinos stomp.
Do they stomp? Sometimes, yes. So sometimes when they'll come up onto this hard area here, and because it was snowing recently, you might be able to think of this. So when you get in from the snow, you sort of bang your feet on the ground to get all of the snow off or all of the mud or whatever you've been walking in. That's what these guys can do as well. So they stamp their feet or scrape their feet on all of this. I've never seen any of them stomp on anything.
No.
They are quite gentle usually.
I have seen Khabib have a little bit of a stomp when he was trying to work up the courage to get in his pool when he first arrived. He was stomping his feet and then he just went for it. It was very cute.
A bull, so he's sort of getting ready, I'm gonna go. And then straight in. So, yeah, they can stomp a bit, but generally
they're quite delicate for something so big.
Quite delicate animals.
Oh, I wish I was there to see Khabib jump in the pool. That sounds adorable. I think we've got a few more questions as well. And we've got one from Donna Mills here. How fast can they charge? That's Josh, 8 years old.
Josh would like to know, how fast can they charge?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, their top speed's about 40 kilometres an hour. So that would be, really, really going for it. They don't charge very often, Indian rhinos, because of the swampy area that they live in. It's much harder to get up to that sort of speed. It's more the sort of black and white rhinos that you would find in Africa that really do the charging. And that can be really scary because they've got 2 horns, not just the one like these guys.
Wow, so they do get really, really fast. We've got one more question coming in from the chat here, and that is from Catriona Campbell. Amy, age 9, would like to know what we can do to help their survival. What can people do to help the survival of these wonderful, wonderful animals?
This is a lovely last question from another Amy. What can we do to help rhino survival?
What can we do to help rhinos survival? Well, it may seem like there's not much we can do. They live in India and it's so far away. What on earth can we do? Well, I mentioned earlier that there's lots of just small things that every single person can do. simple things. So, you know, you can recycle, you can use less energy, you can get mum or dad or whoever looks after the heating in the house, maybe to turn it down a little bit, put a jumper on instead. Maybe instead of asking for a lift somewhere in the car, you might decide to walk or ride your bike instead, so using a bit less energy. So it can, all of these things help to reduce the human impact on the world. So hopefully we can do something about climate change, which will then mean that the homes of these animals are safe way into the future. They need their swampy ground, so if they keep being droughts, if the rainstorms don't come, then it will affect these animals. So just tiny changes that I can make, that you can make, means that you can help protect rhinos in India. It means you can help protect tigers in Sumatra. It means that you can protect penguins in the Falkland Islands or Tristan da Cunha. So every single thing that we do impacts the world that we live in. We're one world, just one planet, and we all share it. So by doing all of these tiny little things, it means that you can help protect it yourself.
And that's it as well, isn't it? It's just everyone watching just doing tiny little things that can really help impact the planet and help all these animals out and just help the world out as well. Well, we are unfortunately, we're running out of time in this Q&A, but Amy and Lizzie, thank you so much for taking time out of your day here at Edinburgh Zoo to show us these wonderful, wonderful rhinos and just tell us a little bit about their lives and what they do and the more important things of what we can do to help this planet as well. And if you've got any more questions, please don't hesitate to send them through the Glasgow Science Centre social media channels. We'll be glad to pass them on to Edinburgh Zoo. You can contact Edinburgh Zoo as well. We've still got plenty more activities coming up on the Curious About Our Planet Festival today as well. So stay tuned for that. Check our website for that too to find out what else is going on today. We've got chats about petroleum in our food, how we can, you know, sorry about that. How we can, you know, make little choices as well. Just what we're talking about there to help the environment too. We've also got a quiz on tonight as well. So check our website and stay tuned for that. And thank you so much to everybody who's tuned in to see these wonderful, wonderful, beautiful animals. Kabir and Sanjay, thank you so much for being stars as well, sitting there looking as amazing as you do. I hope they have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday as well, chilling out in their wonderful, wonderful pad with their own sun indoors and their heated pool. I'm sure they're going to have an amazing day. But anyway, everybody, thank you so much again for tuning in to Curious About Our Planet Festival here at the Atmosphere at Glasgow Science Centre. And I hope you have an amazing, amazing day. Thank you so much. See ya.